Publish it. And now we live. All right. Wary observations, righteous discussions, unite people. It's the man. It's the oh. Wary observations, righteous discussions, unite people. It's the Word Up Podcast. I'm your host, OMNIETC, Omni, etc. Shout out to everybody that's coming through, that's going to come through, and has come through in the past. I wanted to do a review of this Abba and Preach situation. Not this Abba and Preach. Preacher has nothing to do with this. This Abba and Stephen Knight video I wanted to do a review of. Again, it's about Charlie Kirk. And they're wrestling with the dialogue, the things that social media has dissected. You know what I mean? It's rather a late night stream, but it's a rather late night stream for me. And also, I got somewhere to be in the morning, so we're not going to stay here too long. We're probably going to do a couple of hours in dissecting this, and that's going to be it. It's real unfortunate, again, what happened to Charlie Kirk. People have been celebrating, subsequently losing their jobs. Like, who could have predicted, right? Me. But, you know, people are exercising their free speech that this man was denied. And we're here to talk about whether or not he's a racist. I don't believe he is. Because I can look at objective truth. I have the ability to look at objective truth and see it for what it is. Other people, not so much. We're going to see what Abba and Steve have to say about it. And, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to inject my commentary. Without further ado, let's get to it.
Are we live now?
I think so. All right. So for all the folks tuning in, just give me a quick little update in regards to whether or not you guys can hear what's going on. If you guys can, just let me know. That'll help me out. And I will minimize this over here.
Let me pull this shit up.
Okay, yes. So, yeah, YouTube chat. Just let me know. Can y'all hear everything? Can y'all hear Stevie? Can you guys hear me? There might be a bit of a delay, so hopefully they can hear everything.
When does it actually start? Hold
on. All right.
Okay, yes. So, yeah, YouTube chat.
Two, how am I sounding? How's Alba sounding? All right.
Gotta get the technicals out the
I guess
way.
I gotta keep this up.
Okay, yes. So, yeah, YouTube chat. Just let me know. Can y'all hear everything? Can y'all hear Stevie? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, y'all let me know in my chat too. How am I? Rusty on this live shit. Nah.
I didn't realize I had to press the button in the top right.
Hey man, before anything, dog, real shit, bro. Appreciate you letting me tap in, man. You know, cause we don't talk like that, but you know what I'm saying. We've talked a few times behind the scenes and shit, bro. And I reached out and you said run it. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's real. You were a real one for that.
Hey, not a problem, man. I know in the spirit of everything that's happened, you know, the man like debates, and I feel as though you want to discuss some of this stuff.
Oh, salute to Nightish. Nightish, shout out to you. Appreciate you coming through. Always, always. And see, that lets me know my chat's not connected, so let me connect that. Stevie, a little weird. What makes you say that? What makes you say Stevie a little weird? Out of curiosity, what makes you say Stevie a little weird? Hold on.
I know you covered our video in regards to.
Is it the hat? Because I totally understand if you're talking about the hat. Abba is fair with what he says. Okay, let's see what he says.
Behind the scenes.
So yeah, you know, I mean, I stand on.
Hold on, they messing up. Are they running this through? It looks like I see round edges. So I'm thinking they're running this through Discord.
But leading up to that, I just think it's differing in opinions. I want
how we handle this Charlie Kirk situation.
Well,
okay, Charlie Kirk.
I want to keep what I felt was wrong towards the end, but leading up to that, I just think it's differing in opinions, which is fine. That's what we're here for, man. But if I can recall correctly, the beginning of it, it was more like you were talking about how the right wants to, or we need to tone it down. Or I don't want to say we, right? It was more like focusing on the right versus the left. You know what I mean? And you felt a way about. I'm assuming what your intent was is focus on the right. Now we need to tone it down, and we're doing the same. And we're doing the same thing that the left was doing, bro. And where I differ in opinion with you as far as this whole situation is that I don't think anything should be toned down if we're highlighting, if we're focusing on the right people. You know what I'm saying? I think that the right versus left is being overhyped, which makes sense because we're divisive as hell in society, man. But, the demons are demoning. You know what I mean? And regardless if it's right or left, I feel like, these people need to be held accountable, and we need to zero in on these individuals. And I don't think a toning down at all will work, given the climate.
Okay.
Okay, so his opening, we're going to break this all the way down, right? So I hear what you're saying, Nightish, and you might have seen this already. You said, no, Stevie is on that might makes right conservative BS. I mean, I hear you, but at the same time, that's the same thing that got civilization. That ideology is the same ideology that got civilization to where it's at. You know what I'm saying? The might makes right. That's kind of how humanity started out. Instead of listening, they would just call Abba a tether. Yeah, because he's Ethiopian. You know what I mean? He's not from here, so that's what most likely the community that acknowledges tether FBA rhetoric. That's what they would do. So yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that because he's Ethiopian in origin. But okay, so Stephen Knight's open thing, because I don't want to break it all the way down. He's suggesting that, he's suggesting impartiality. He wants accountability on both sides. Let's see if he sticks to that premise throughout this conversation, though.
And I'm not gonna say I felt some type of way at the beginning when we're focusing on, like, the emphasis of your video was to highlight Charlie, and then you were trying to compare it to other things that may have happened that were similar, and sure. I think that's taking attention away from the elephant in the room, which is Charlie Kirk situation, which we never had a situation like this happen ever, because of the social media and the fact that everyone was able to see it. You know what I'm saying? And that makes the situation a whole lot different than anything that's happened in the past as far as a murder of this magnitude. And, it seems that you were minimizing the impact of what happened to Charlie.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to keep rolling out. I'll let you.
No, go.
Okay, so 3 points. 3 points that he asserted. At least the three major ones that I caught. All right. Impartiality. He's establishing himself as impartial to the party rhetoric, the party conversation. So he said he wants accountability on both sides. Then he's talking about the magnification of the magnification of events in the real world as they're viewed through social media. Because this could have easily been Dr. King, this could have easily been MLK, this could have easily been JFK. if we were in a social media era, it would have gotten, you know what I'm saying, publicized, politicized, and it would have spread like wildfire like it did in this social media era if it was JFK today, right? Even more so because JFK was a president at the time. So, but it's the visceral reaction of seeing the unaliving of a man on camera. This is what he's talking about, and it taking place on social media in real time. So I get that. And then the third thing is he established ABBA, his gripe with ABBA, which is the reducing of the impact. So he's stating that, on top of the other two assertions of his own, I don't want to say bias, but his own way of thinking, he's establishing his gripe, his grievance with ABBA of the minimizing of the moment. All right. I think we got a baseline to work with for Steve. Let's see what ABBA says.
Go for it. If you're still on this one, I just didn't want to move from this topic.
I don't want to roll out like 10 things and have you. Maybe
it's always better to go point by point.
Yeah, maybe you should go one for one. So
yeah,
it felt like, from my end, it felt like it was a right versus left type of thing, and you know what I mean. From how you were describing it, right's doing this, the left's doing this, and you're saying it's hypocritical of the right to be complaining about the same things that the left is doing, or what the right is implying that we're doing. And to me, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about we isolate, the evil, the degenerate shit that's going on. And when we try to minimize or just bring up the comparison between Charlie Kirk and everything else, it minimizes the tragedy that everyone just witnessed and like the impact it had on everyone, man. So I feel like it's deflecting from it, and it's like Charlie Kirk, his tragedy was important, but other things has happened, and the right was doing the same thing. So it's kind of like, no, it is to me, it's minimizing, what happened.
Got you. So I think there's 2 points in there. One being the hyper focusing on right versus left. So you felt like we did that too much. And the second part is minimizing Charlie deaths and murder.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Okay. So just to go to the first point, I did have that in my notes. I think in your video at around 2-minute mark, you said that I was minimizing Charlie Kirk's murder by comparing it to other political violences or like contextualizing it in the way that I was doing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm minimizing it. I disagree with that characterization for a few reasons. I think it's natural when someone dies that we try to understand why. That's why people love murder mystery. That's why people, every time someone dies, they want to know who the perpetrator is. They want to know who their motivations are, because murder is generally something that we see as incredibly heinous. And so understanding what led to that is always important. When I'm not comparing, this is not the right word. What I'm doing is that I'm explaining away how our society led to this moment and this man, because he wasn't murdered in a vacuum. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was an individual who was incredibly troubled, and he decided to go out and murder somebody for their political opinions, their affiliation, maybe because they had mentally ill issues, who knows? But there's a landscape, and there's a lot of things that lead up to this murder. It's always important to examine these things, because if we don't understand how we got here, then we're going to be doomed to repeat it. It's never, in my opinion, a bad thing to contextualize any world event, provided you contextualize it fully, right? That you, or at least you try to.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it right here for a second. So I see what I was talking about, but he's trying to bring up motive, and it's really unclear what the exact motive is, because I don't know what to believe that came out and what not to believe. I'm gonna be honest in this case. They say that, the individual was in a relationship with a transgender, a person transitioning from boy to girl, essentially. And without going into what I think of the whole trans conversation, that being, that being a motivating factor, that relationship being a motivating factor. They were talking about Discord messages and whatnot. I haven't seen the messages. I haven't read them for myself. So the evidence is kind of really sketchy. I do believe that if these things that were put forth actually are valid, because we haven't heard from the family of the accused. Like, nobody's seen them. They probably don't want to be seen because this is very shameful. We haven't heard anything from the boy himself. We don't know. It's crazy because about this far into the case, we already knew what was going on with Diddy. We knew what was going on with Young Thug. We knew certain details as they were being released, but this is more hush hush. It seems tad bit cloak and dagger. Some people are being weird about it. Oh, what's up? What's up, A-Dub? A-Dub, what's good? Peace, peace. Appreciate you sliding on me. So, yeah. So, who's to say what's going on? Who's to say what's going on in this case exactly? But do I believe the claims that have been made thus far? I do, but I reserve a modest amount of skepticism. I reserve the right to be skeptical about a few of these details because they're not connecting the dots quick enough for me.
Because without context, then all that happened was that someone was shot. Context is everything.
Well, to that point, that makes total sense what you're saying, but to me, it didn't come across that way when you voiced that in the video. It seemed like you were
like, and this is the thing. I know, Nidus, you appreciate what he was doing with this conversation, but this is the premise that I don't appreciate with ABBA, right? It's because we really don't know the motive. So how is this context going to help in the case of an individual that receives death threats on a daily basis? Any one of those emails could be the reason why. Like, any narrative behind any one of those emails that he gets, any one of the death threats that Kirk was getting could be a motivating factor of, potential reasons as to why somebody would do this. We don't know any definites yet, and that's the point I was making. Since we don't, as the public, don't know any definites, it's really hard to put the context together. All we have is he said something that a lot of people don't like, and that's the reason that someone decided to take his life. And that's tough to justify in my eyes. Why should someone take another person's life? It shouldn't have happened.
Trying to, highlight the divide between the right and the left, or whoever the instigators of it are. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem like you were trying to get to a root of the problem or how we trying to fix it. It's like, like I said before, I mean, what you're saying now, if you had voiced it that way in the video, I wouldn't have had the mindset that I have in regards to what you said. But in the video, it didn't come across to me like that at all. It felt like,
Well, right now, the pervasive narrative, and this is where it comes to the left versus right thing, the pervasive narrative that's online and that's being espoused by some of the most important people in our political, stratosphere, is that violence of a political nature is solely left-wing. Okay. And I remember at about 3 minutes, 29 seconds, when Matt Walsh is talking in your video, you said that I was interpreting what he's saying. When he's talking about good versus evil, it's time for the righteous to prevail over the forces of evil. You were saying that I was making a left versus right thing, right? But that's just not true.
Let me make a correction, because you go further on in the video, I recognize that point. I said, hold up, if Matt Walsh is doing that, highlighting the left like this, that's unfair to do so. Then I went on to saying this makes the left look bad, it makes the transgenders look bad, it makes everybody affiliated to this look bad. It's like guilty by association. That's not the right thing to do. It should be a good versus evil thing, right? But then I went on because you had a couple other videos of people uttering or echoing the same sentiments as far as righteous and good and evil. But I did highlight Matt Walsh in that video specifically saying, "All right, I see that he is describing the left in this manner, and that shouldn't be the move."
Right. But again,
right, because when these things get politicized to the extent that they have been, the core thing of the conversation gets lost. Like people are more debating whether or not Charlie Kirk was a racist or he said racially charged things versus the morality behind should it be socially acceptable to take someone's life over words. That should be the focal point of the conversation. Is it morally acceptable and socially acceptable to take someone's life because they said something you didn't like? But for whatever reason, we always skew it and look towards racism. You know what I'm saying? Racism, he doesn't have the right to say what he and then the people celebrating his death on social media instead of actually looking at it and saying, what does this today lead to tomorrow? Because if it becomes socially acceptable to take someone's life over words, that is a domino effect that I don't think we'll ever recover from. Just saying.
At about like 6 to 7 minutes in the video, you kind of do it again where you say that, that's how I'm interpreting a lot of this narrative of good versus evil. But it's not just Matt Walsh. Ben Shapiro said that most of the political violence today is flowing from left-wing movements and ideology. Elon Musk was on Twitter. He said the left is the party of murder. If they won't let us live in peace, then our choice is to fight or die. Alex Jones said the right-wingers are in a war during the live stream. He said that the left has been put a bullseye on Trump and he put a bullseye on his supporters. President Trump himself, during an interview, let's see here, let me pull up the clip because I think it's just important to me to get the exact words that he said. On Fox and Friends, he says, we have radicals on the right as well. And he says, I'll tell you how, I can send you the clip you wanted. I'm going to just read it verbatim.
I believe you, though, bro. It's fucked up.
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see more crime. The radicals on the left are the problem. So when I'm talking about right versus left, I'm not talking about someone in a vacuum or someone at home. I'm talking about the most important people in our political discourse, framing most of this violence as I only left. And what you did in the video, and I did appreciate, is that when we said, if you look at the numbers, people got mad because I quoted the ADL, but there's all.
Here's why I understand the point that Ebba's making, but here's why I don't like it. Because he's essentially asserting that, when he's talking about people on the right, he's talking about politicians and, people with high amounts of visibility. But the individual that took out Charlie Kirk was a no-name. None of us knew who this kid was before this event. Nobody knew who this kid was before this event. So I don't think that really applies here because the individual is a no-name, the person that got charged. And what his exact what his exact motives are still up for question. Even though, like I said, they put out a bunch of evidence, right? But to completely connect the dots, like I really want to see how this trial progresses, because they still have to go through it because he's resisting. He's not admitting guilt or anything. I'm pretty sure the kid is going to try to take it to trial. I don't think he's going to be funded or backed by his parents in this trial. So that means he's going to have legal aid. It's going to be a whole circus. But yeah, I don't think that premise actually works here because they're painting this kid at least as someone that is of the left, even though, like, essentially this kid is the black sheep of the family. right? The kid that took out Kirk, he's the black sheep of the family. His family are staunch white right wingers, right, MAGA people, but he himself was in a relationship with a transgender individual, and he's been in discourse. Allegedly, he's been in discourse servers saying a whole lot of liberal things and saying a whole lot of potentially violent things in regards to people on the right. So they're painting him as the black sheep of the family. Yes, he comes from a conservative background, but he's been indoctrinated with liberal philosophies, ideologies, and as such, he went a totally different way than his upbringing. Is how they're painting this, right? I really want to see, like, I want court documents. I want to read court documents when they come out. But that's what we got to work with thus far. So the kid's motives are supposedly he was doing this out of protection and love. That's what the alleged note says. For his partner. So he adopted liberal philosophies, and none of us knew who he was until this incident occurred. So you can't really compare his level of visibility to a Donald Trump, or even say that Donald, was speaking directly to this kid. If anything, Donald was probably enraging this kid. And maybe that's your point, Abba. Let's continue.
All sorts of things, from FBI statistics to different organizations who track terrorist attacks. Most of it comes from religious extremists and then right wingers. Left wingers at the bottom of that list, especially over the last 10 years. So I'm not trying to frame this as left versus right. That's the plate that's already been set. Since Charlie Kirk died, the right has not stopped politicizing his death. They haven't stopped using it for fuel for their attacks on the left. And so in that climate, you're asking people to not talk about left versus...
Well, they're going to bring it up. It's only been about almost 2 weeks. It's only been about almost 2 weeks. They just had the funeral last week. It didn't feel right going live about any of this then. That's why I didn't. But yeah, I don't know, man. They're going to talk about it. It's the big thing that just happened to someone on their side of the fence. So let's continue.
Versus right, but if the left does it, then the just right gets to make the narrative that they're the violent ones. And it's
my opinion is that both should submit. It's not a left and right thing. It's an evil versus good thing. You know what I mean? And and then it's me watching you, so I'm expecting that to be that should be the point. You know what I mean? It's like what you're doing is adding just, fuel to the fire to what you're saying everybody else is doing. Like, you're highlighting the hypocrisy of people complaining about what the left does, essentially what the right is doing the same thing. You know what I mean? But, with that, like I said, with that the Matt Walsh clip, I specified I definitely could tell he was highlighting the left. Well, all that shit is fucking wrong. And I said that in the video. I said that in the video, right? I said that it's not a left versus right thing. It makes everybody look bad. We need to focus on the motherfuckers actually making things horrible for everybody, the extremists, the radicals, all that. You know what I mean? That's what my focus was. I feel like that's what the focus should be for everybody.
Yeah, and I did have that noted in some of the things that I like that you did. I did appreciate that you actually said that, because a lot of people are not saying that, or they're just avoiding the topic entirely. But you have to understand, when I'm watching this video, when I'm watching the discourse, I'm looking at things in its totality.
What video are you talking about? When you say you're watching the video, what video?
I think I was looking at a lot of the political coverage in regards to this. I've been looking at the people who are responding, everyone who's been talking about this, and how the public is talking. If you spend time online, they're not talking about this as like both sides. That's not a lot of the discourse. A lot of the discourse, especially from the right, is that they're just saying essentially the left is the violent party. Go check out those comment sections. Go check out a lot of the discourse.
But that's going to happen every time that happens. Every time someone from the left does something crazy, they're going to highlight the left. When the right does something, they're going to highlight the fucking right. It just that comes with the territory.
Right. But it should be noted that we should correct those narratives and say that these are not one-sided things. If you watched our video, we didn't say violence is only right-wing. We said there's plenty of people who've murdered people on the left, from the left. And we said that. But the dominant narrative right now is that left-wingers are the violent ones. And they're obviously, especially with the most recent murder, it makes sense that it's going to be the dominant narrative. But it's important to not let those lies be able to be spread and to say, actually, guys, you're wrong. And in fact, this year, there's been other people who've been killed. You said we were minimizing his death by bringing up these other murders, but those deaths are part of this discussion. The same thing that led to those people being killed is the exact same thing that led to Charlie Kirk being killed. And
well, this is the thing, right? When we talk about violence in general, we're not just talking about bodily harm, right? We're not just talking about harm to another person. All right. So, perfect example recently with LA, DC, Chicago, we're not just talking about, the taking of life, but also the destruction of property. If we're actually talking about if we're talking general violence. Now, if they were having a discussion of, who's the most murderous versus who's the most violent, then yeah, definitely right. The statistics show what they show. Definitely right. But if we're talking about violence, and included in violence would be the destruction of property as well, I'm gonna have to look at the statistics on that. Like, if we're including the destruction of property, in the whole violence thing, I don't think that they're ever going to bring that up as a point. But that would be something that I would say when we're talking about violence. The more violence, the ones that destroyed property. I don't think anybody destroyed property behind Charlie Kirk's death, right? I don't think anybody destroyed property behind Charlie Kirk's I'm sorry, I'm supposed to say unaliving. All these YouTube rules. I'm supposed to say unalive. So when Charlie Kirk was unalived, I don't think anybody there was marching. I did see the white guys with the fight back white man chant. That didn't escape me. That was very special. That was a special moment. But I think for them to make it a race thing when it was, come on, dude, it was a white guy that shot another white guy. You want to make it a race thing? How? Anyway, and that's not what, from what I've seen, and let me just say my position on Charlie Kirk in general. I don't believe he was a racist. I honestly don't. From what I've seen of Charlie Kirk, there's far more footage of him being the opposite of what racist is versus those. It's like 7 out of context clips. They run the same things back to back. The black pilot comment and the what's the other one? Black pilot, blacks being better in slavery, which he was talking about blacks being together more in slavery. Not slavery, but Jim Crow era, which Jim Crow is Democratic legislation for those that don't know. Yeah, they just run back the same 7 narratives back, but there's far more content than just those 7 clips that's supersede what those clips are intended to be used as to diminish a dead man's character. But I digress. So I don't think if we're talking about violence in general, the destruction of property, there's more destruction of property happening on the left. And I would say the right has more actual ending of lives. Also, prayers up to that church in Michigan that got hit earlier today. I'm just say this: I don't recognize Mormons as actual Christians. I don't recognize Mormons as a actual branch of Christianity, but they have the right to believe what they want to believe, and if they believe in a book that is less than 100 years old, that some guy wrote one day here in America, that is your right to believe that, as long as you tone it down beneath keep sweet level. Let's not, we ain't trying to keep sweet. You know what I mean? But if you're just like, y'all just was in church the way that y'all was in church, and some sicko whack job came through, sprayed up the church, was about to light that mug on fire, yeah, the loss of life is egregious, especially when you're assaulting someone's religion over religious purposes. Terrible, terrible. So prayers up for y'all.
And it's important to know that, because if we don't understand that, then all this is just going to happen again. You said it was different in your video because Charlie Kirk died on camera and nobody was supposed to see that. Remember that you saying that?
Yeah.
Right. To me, I understand that the fact that he died on camera makes it much more graphic, much more in your face. But at the end of the day, murder is murder. Dying is dying.
But it's the effect that it has on society. It's not the same. In a vacuum, it's the same. But if people were able to see that video until the end of time now, right? They're able to see that man go out the way that he did, and knowing up until this, I can't compare someone else that had the amount of influence Kirk had. You know what I mean? And to have, if he hadn't been murdered in front of everyone at once, your analogy, your comparison will be fair, man. But you can't minimize that.
If Kirk was not killed on camera, if Kirk's not killed on camera, is this situation more or less tragic?
It's less tragic.
So dying on camera makes a murder worse?
No, not the murder worse, but the effect that has on the people is worse because everybody can see it.
Sure.
It's different than watching a news report and you hear about somebody that got something, had something happen to them that was grotesque, as opposed to actually seeing it, because this people are going through trauma with this right now. You know what I mean? They're gonna have this burnt, little kids saw this. It's nowhere near the same as anybody else.
That's the effect that it has on you as an individual. But yeah, the tragedy is the same. The tragedy.
I disagree with you on that.
We're definitely gonna disagree. Yeah. If my father dies on camera or doesn't die on camera, at the end of the day, he died. Somebody took my person away from me.
So you don't think the fact that everybody can see your father die and have that accessible 24/7 on social media is not going to make the situation any different than having him die?
No, it makes it different. But from a moral standpoint, it's the exact same. There's no difference in morality.
Well, morality.
Okay, so they're arguing two different points. They're two ships passing in the night with this conversation, right? Steve is on optics. He's talking about the scope of. Oh no, hey Dub, appreciate you, Dub. Appreciate you. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. All that good stuff. It's supposed to be an interactive experience. That's why I got so much chat stuff going. So, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, especially you, A-Dub. You've been over here. So, Steve is arguing optics. Abba is arguing morality. So, they're two ships passing in the night. They're not actually having the same argument.
It's a different conversation. I'm just talking about tragedy. Morality is the same. I'm talking about the effects it's having on society.
Yeah, but if I'm talking about other murders, I'm talking about other murders, I'm talking about the moral aspect of it.
You didn't convey that in the video, though.
I don't care. I don't care whether it happens in front of 100 people, 10 people, a school. It doesn't really matter to me. Murder is murder.
But you didn't convey that.
All political violence to me that happens for political reasons are equally bad, whether they happen. That's how I feel about it. You might disagree with that.
And I'd imagine a lot are going to disagree with that perspective as well, man. The fact that you can see it, you can hear about somebody that died by the guillotine, but they're actually seeing it is going to be totally different. And with kids, college campus, in front of his babies, in front of his wife, the whole world, see that, bro, is entirely different.
It's different in the impact that it has on the viewer.
Yeah, but that's my whole point. That's my whole point, and that's why it's more tragic.
But that doesn't mean that we can't contextualize it with those other murders. You say it's not comparable, but I disagree. They died for the same reason.
Yeah, but if you had related that way, trying to bring up the similarities and how you conveyed it just now, it would make more sense. But that's not at all how you conveyed it in the video. It came from, you know, a leftist bias type of perspective from my end, that you were trying to minimize it by bringing up other similarities. You didn't bring up you didn't bring anything up about it being moral or same morally. You were just saying, to summarize it, you know, Kirk died, everybody else died, and this happens with political violence. That's pretty much what you said.
Because what I'm getting at is not how he died, or like in front of who that he died. What I'm focused on is why was he killed. I don't personally care that he was killed on a live stream or in a pre-recorded video.
Do you think you're the anomaly with that perspective?
No.
You think that most people don't care that he died online?
I think that's the reason why it went viral, for sure, but that's not why they care. You don't care about this topic because what I'm asking you is, you say you don't care that he died on live stream. And I'm asking you, do you think most people don't care that he died on live stream? No. Most people are focused on the fact that he was killed for political reasons. That's what people care about. No one's outraged by this whole thing because it happened on camera.
I'm not saying that they're outraged. I'm just saying that adds more nuance. It makes it worse because of that.
But that's in the background. That's not that important. What's really important is that he was killed for political reasons. That's the focus. That's not just a little bit. That's 99% of the focus. None of the coverage that we've been seeing lately is because, like, can you believe?
But see, again, Abba is asserting that he was killed for political reasons. We don't know what the kid's motive was. For certain. Like, to say that he was killed for political reasons, when I think of political reasons, like he was taking out the game in order to silence him, to silence his message, for there to be a change of regime, blase, blase. It hasn't been concrete what the motive of the shooter was. We've heard some leaks, some leaked evidence. We've heard a couple of things. They've somewhat stitched the story together, but until we get into the meat and potatoes of the case via the court system, we're not going to know for certain what the motive was. It's not completely defined or outlined for us. So we can't say that it was political reasons. I think based on what they've given us so far, if we're just basing it on that, it wasn't political. It was a stupid kid that did a stupid thing in the name of love because, you know what I'm saying, he was in a romantic relationship, and he got turned out. That's what I think. I think they turned that boy out. They busted him down. It went to his heart. It touched his heart. It touched his soul. And he would, you know what I'm saying, because of that, he felt the need to do anything and everything to protect the one that he cared about. That's what I think happened. Based off of what they said. They said there was a note. He said, I did it. And then there was some messaging talking about, I did it for you. I wanted to protect you because I love you and all of this. To his transgender, they're calling him a partner, his transgender lover. So the whole story's wild, which is why I'm maintaining a modicum of skepticism about the story. But that's the story that we got so far to run with. So, you know what I'm saying? Nah. So we don't really know. So to say that it was for political reasons, when the number one narrative that they put out there was, you know, this kid fell in love, did some stupid stuff in the name of love, basically.
Believe that people die on camera. Nobody's talking about.
But that's not my argument. Come on, bro. That's not my argument, dog. I'm not saying that it's only important because it happened on camera. I'm saying that it's more tragic. It's worse than everything else that's happened thus far because it happened the way that it did.
I think the word that Steve wants to use instead of saying more tragic, I think he wants to say more traumatic, because it's certainly more visceral because everybody gets to see how this man got in stunning detail. Like you couldn't get like people are still debating the file has been released and people are still debating who shot JFK. But here you see the bullet penetrate the neck and the blood coming down the side of his shirt. In far better detail than whatever they were using back in JFK's day. So I think Steve means to say tragic. Okay, A-Dub says they took him out because lots of the younger generation was waking up and learning our Constitution, and the Democrats wanted the people to forget about it, to have total control, I'd say, if that makes sense. I believe so. If this was a they situation, because some people are speculating with Netanyahu and such, the small hat people, the small hat gang. People are debating whether or not they had a hand in it. The story's not and that's why I'm talking the way that I'm talking about the young man's story, because that story really doesn't really. There's too many things about it that are too convenient, right? They found the guy in the same week. He just so happened to write a note. He wrote a note and left it on the computer desk of his transgender lover about what was it? It's too convenient. That's why I'm keeping a little bit of skepticism. It's too convenient. It's too cut and dry. It's an old gun that shouldn't have been able to make the shot, but he made the shot because he's been allegedly shooting since he was like 6 or 7. No, I think it was like 7 or 8 with his pop on hunting trips. But yeah, there's too many things that are easy to poke holes in, which is why I don't want to be concrete with the narrative, but that's the only narrative that we have the supposed evidence on. And that's the one that they're going to run with in court. Now, is it very possible that, he was, because he started talking different about Israel. Let's make no concessions, right? He was starting to talk different about Israel and Gaza. He was starting to talk different about Israel and Gaza. The people around him, the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, they're saying, he was fed up with Netanyahu, right? And what's going on there in Gaza. So we gotta just like filter through the BS, and because there is so much BS floating around right now, we can't really establish motive. So a lot of Abba's arguments that he's making right now, this early on, it's not really concrete. Whereas what Steve is talking about is, the technology that we have and how it's spreading everything faster, and more people are being traumatized by seeing someone get taken out in broad daylight. So I get Steven's point. Abba, it doesn't really have a concrete foundation to stand on, even though I can see what he's talking about. Let's continue.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll agree to disagree. I don't think someone dying on camera makes it worse. I think a tragedy, death is death, murder is murder. If you are murdered by somebody on camera in front of a body, so you don't think
so somebody just dies in their sleep naturally compared to somebody being cut up in body parts and thrown in the dumpster. You think those deaths are the same?
That's not the same, because the reason
but death is death, though.
No. Death is death, sure.
Murder is murder.
murder and death is not the same thing. You dying of old age is not the same thing as being assassinated.
All right, you.
Okay, so Steve had more ground with me to stand on, but he just, you know what I'm saying, delegitimized his argument by taking it to that extreme. That's not a 1-for-1 parallel. Yeah, A-Dub, exactly, huh? Like that doesn't really that doesn't really do it for me. So like Steve kind of went left field with that. He had more ground stat, no, but nah. Shout out Cellulite Podcast in the building. Shout out Cellulite Podcast in the building. Omni. What's up? What's good with you? What's good with you? All right. Let's get back to it.
You get shot in the head by somebody, or you get cut up into multiple pieces and fed to some gators on camera. Which one is you think? You think the murder is murder?
No, because what happened after to my body and how the person extended that murder is going to make it worse.
So
yeah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. You see how that doesn't make sense? It's too much. This is your captain saying, just wanted to give you a heads up that we just got the updated flight controls from ChatGPT and we'll be utilizing them for today's landing. Oh, facts. I should have recorded that when we was on the game. I should have. Every time we on the game, I'm going live. That was gold. That was fucking gold. Inside joke. Ain't got time to talk about it, but someday we will. All right.
Oh, you don't think what you're saying is equivalent to me, Kurt getting shot on camera? It's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think we just disagree fundamentally. But again, I don't think that's the focus.
Like a better example would be someone getting, a no-name getting shot and found the next day in their home versus someone getting shot on camera and it being posted all over social media. Like Steve, he starts with a good premise, but he doesn't really know how to drive the point home and articulate his argument, and I think that's where he's losing in the debate. It's not really like he doesn't have a good point. He has a great point. He just needs to, like, on his feet, he needs to back it up better.
Focus. I don't think that's.
But that was my focus though. That was my focus when I felt like you were minimizing it, bro, because that's a big reason why Kirk's death had the impact it had. It had to reach because you could actually see it.
Okay, so let me say I agree with you. Let's do a different exercise. Let's say I agree with you. These are different to a degree. So what's your point? We shouldn't contextualize his murder?
Well, in your video, it didn't feel like you were contextualizing. If I felt personally that you contextualized it trying to get to the root of a problem, then we wouldn't be here today. But I felt like your intent was to minimize Kirk's death by bringing up all these things that happened to people in the past.
I would argue that you are minimizing his death by not contextualizing it properly. If you don't talk about why something happened and how we got here, then all you're doing is just describing.
Who said I'm not talking about why? I'm just focused on your video.
Yes, but if you're going to counter my narrative and say that I'm wrong for contextualizing it the way that I did, or you don't like...
No, but you're saying you're contextualizing it now. When I watched it, I didn't think you were contextualizing it. I just thought that you were minimizing it.
That's fair. I disagree with that. I think I talked about how we got here. I definitely said that in the video. I talked about the fact that there's been a string of political violence over the last 10 years and that this is not a shocking outcome. Kirk being assassinated is not the craziest thing. There's a reason why he had security. There's a reason why I think he was wearing a bulletproof vest. There's been threats on these people. So we have to take that into consideration, understand that this is not something that happened that is out of this world. Even Kirk himself realizes this is a possibility.
Yeah, but
I said that earlier.
Well,
that's not I get your point, but that's not at all my argument, bro. That's what
I'm saying. They have two different arguments. They're arguing two different things and not arguing the same thing. And so this conversation, this debate is already off on the bad foot.
That's what I was talking about in that video.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, I didn't receive that on mine. If I felt like you were contextualizing it, then, we're on the same wave as far as, this is what happens when, politics get off the rails. But in the video, like I said, I thought that you were just minimizing it by comparing it to everything else. I didn't feel like there was any contextualizing there, so just got to agree to disagree. And I've watched.
Also, I also gotta point out. Mans is saying feel a lot. Those that know. Like Cell, you know, A-Dub, you know, Nidus, you know. Feel when you're trying to have a debate doesn't. It's you kind of already on the back foot of the debate when you come in with the feel rhetoric. We're here to talk about facts, sir. We're here to talk about facts. You have great points. You just need to be able to back them up with the facts. That's all I ask.
The video probably 3 more times because we're having this conversation today, man, and I didn't get it all that you were contextualizing it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say that. I was saying those words exactly, contextualizing it, but I think that is what I was doing. But again, we could agree to disagree. So those were, I think, your first 2 disagreements that you had with me. Yeah, you can definitely let me know some other ones that you had.
And I mean, I just get to the meat and the potatoes now, man, because do you feel like you manufactured a narrative on Kirk by showing those those snips of him in your video?
Yeah, okay, we can address that because I did have that in my notes as well. I think around like the 20-minute mark, you said I took him out of context, right?
Not even take him out of context. You put your context on it because if you let it play, I put the additional clips on it to give it more context.
So just for the viewer, there's a clip that we played, maybe of 15 seconds of Kirk on a Jubilee panel. He's talking to somebody. This is a panel about Christians versus, or is it right-wingers versus lefties? I don't remember.
I don't know, but it was about abortion.
I hope he's not drinking beer while he's having a debate. I really do. I hope he's not drinking beer while he's having a debate. You know what I'm saying? This isn't beer, by the way. This is zero sugar soda. Natural soda sweetened with stevia. I'm not doing Coke.
Okay, it was about abortion.
Well,
right?
that one, you put 3 videos
and Kirk is a very Christian, self-proclaimed Christian. Everybody knows this about him. So in that clip, the woman is asking him a hypothetical where he says, if your 10-year-old daughter was raped, okay, would you force her to keep the child?
That is a terrible question to ask anybody, by the way. I don't care what you're debating. I don't care what you ask a charged question like that. You ask a charged question like that, you're essentially saying, if you don't say the right thing on this question, you're a piece of shit human being. That's the type of that's the nature of that question. If you don't say the thing I think you should say, you are forever a piece of shit human being, and we want nothing to do with you. You should be canceled if you don't say the quote-unquote correct thing to say.
Is that a fair assessment of the clip?
Yeah.
And then Kirk says yes.
The baby will have the baby, or my girl will have the child.
Okay, and then you said that we were kind of dishonest with how we did that we clipped him out of context, and then we put our own context, right?
No, I'm not saying you put your own context. You didn't put the entire context. Like you said, okay. you led into it.
Exactly, double-edged sword. Double-edged sword. It's one of those questions that, they ask in a debate. Someone who gets in their fifis asks this supercharged question in a debate just so that they think that you're going to concede. I would have said, yeah, out of spite, you ask me a question like that, out of spite. I probably wouldn't do that to my child because I'm not hardcore with that. I think there are some circumstances where, if you have to save the mother's life or if the child is going to be gone anyway, then doc, do what you got to do. But outside of that, I'm pretty pro-life. I don't see a reason outside of that to get an abortion, but a baby deletion. But this, like, his beliefs are his beliefs, and he wants to believe that that's right for him and his family. Who are we to tell him what's right for him and his family? He's not the one that put the baby in the child. Somebody already did that. And his belief structure is set up to the point of, yeah, that's wrong. Okay, that's his belief. He has the right to believe that.
By saying, you said, I think, I'm not going to speak, I'm going to recite you verbatim, but it was essentially, I think that Kirk has said some disgusting things as well. And then you played these 3 videos.
I played that clip. Yeah, so let's just talk about the first clip, because I remember you taking that first clip and being really shocked. I think, let me just see here. So I did have that in my notes here. Oh yeah, you said that. You said that was really surprising that you were shocked coming from me. You called me the king of receipts.
Yeah.
But yes.
That's real shit, because I rely, but I know when you giving somebody shit, you gonna have to prove the point.
So how do you feel I took that clip out of context?
Because when I see that it's trying to paint Kirk as a monster because he's going to force his 10-year-old daughter to have a child.
Right, but as somebody who's anti-abortion, that's his stance. He will force his daughter to have the child because he feels as though life is precious or whatever it is, and he sees the fetus as a life, so he's like, my daughter will have that baby. That's his take.
Yeah, but
well, his take is a little bit deeper than that. He doesn't combat evil with evil. I've always said this as long as I've been vocal on the internet. There's this paradox, right? A great evil is going to overtake the land. A great evil is going to overtake the land. The righteous will be defeated by this evil, unless they turn to evil to defeat evil. So does one stay steadfast in righteousness, or do you use evil to defeat evil? In either case, evil remains. That's the paradox. That's the paradox. In either case, evil remains. It gets one level deeper than that is, on the righteous side, if you turn away from righteousness, commit wickedness, commit evil to defeat evil, did you ever really believe in your righteous path if all you were concerned about was victory over evil? Not being steadfast in righteousness, even though you knew you were going to succumb to evil in your righteous ways. Did you ever believe in righteousness if you use evil to defeat evil? And I can say with Charlie Kirk, he seemed like a steadfast individual.
The rest of the video play. I mean, it's subjective. Everybody's going to feel differently watching that, but if you just have that short video, it makes it seem like he's a monster. I don't care. Anti-abortion. She having a baby. It could be for anything, because my way or the highway or whatever the case may be, bro. Everybody's not informed on Kirk and his reasonings why. And if I think that you let the video play and gives you his reasonings why, people would understand it. They may not agree with it, but they'll understand it, and they'll take a blow away from how they're initially feeling about him being a monster.
Well, they'll see him still.
Because I'm going to be honest, a lot of those clips sound wild as shit. Like, when you hear those clips for the first time, because like I said, I wasn't following Kirk. I wasn't a follower of Kirk. I just saw it. But I know in this social media zeitgeist that you have got to be on your P's and Q's and not see a 10 or 20 or a 30-second clip of somebody and extrapolate your whole idea on what that clip, your whole idea of who they are based off of that 30-second clip. Because I damn sure don't want that to be done to me. And it has been done to me, though.
As a monster, because no matter how much you explain it from a religious
standpoint, that's your opinion, though, because I don't see him as a monster.
But that was my whole point. Do you remember what the greater point of that whole section was? That section was about the fact that some people view him as a monster, including me. I don't like the guy. I didn't think his politics were good. That's my personal opinion. I think I'm free to say that. And I played clips that, to me, showcase his stances on things that I just don't agree with and I think are disgusting. Forcing your 10-year-old daughter to have a baby, okay, that after she was great, okay, you could say it's great for religious reasons. You could give whatever justification you want. There's nothing in there that took him out of context.
It is, because if you having that short snippet, people are not going to know why he's doing it. They're just going to know he's doing it. If he gives justification of why, and he gave very clear reasons of why, that's going to make some people look at it different.
And sometimes it doesn't make it better depending on who you are. But I hear what Steve is saying is that you still needed to add in the additional context, not just his answer of yes or no, but the context of, you know, the why. And I find it very interesting that Abba all of a sudden doesn't want the addition, like doesn't care about the additional context, when his initial premise on the conversation was the political context behind the motive of committing the act. He wanted context then, but he doesn't care about context now. That's interesting.
You're putting this, you know what I mean? Like, it's like showing a video of somebody shooting somebody in the head, but just randomly, but you figure out that this motherfucker killed my mom, then it makes sense.
No, because the people who are following this, or people who are tuning into this stuff, know that Charlie is a political speaker who's incredibly Christian.
You're making that assumption, though, bro. Like, you're making that assumption because now, since Kirk has died, there are so many people that are just now learning about Kirk. There's so many people that didn't know before.
That's true. I came across the Charlie Kirk channel, and when I first came across it in the past week or so, it was sitting at like 4 mil, and then I checked back the other day, and it's already hit like 5.2 million or something. So he's growing like at the time of his passing, he grew exponentially.
There's so many people that didn't know before. So if you put that narrative out, this is a big reason why so many people don't like Kirk, because they get some of these short reels taken out of context. If you add
but
context,
they're not out of context. It's not a context.
It is. Well, it's not. It's not with the entire context.
It's not, Stevie. If someone says I'm anti-abortion, I'm a Christian, we know why you don't want an abortion.
In that clip you put, he didn't say.
No, he didn't say. He didn't say because he was a Christian. He didn't say it wasn't because he. Even though that is where the belief comes from, but that's not what he said. He said we don't combat evil with evil. The remedy for an evil act cannot be a subsequent evil act. And he, because of his religion and because of his devout faith, he views that secondary act as evil or as egregious or as sinful as the first. So we do not commit another evil act to. It's like putting out fire with fire. Backfire is a firefighting strategy, but his whole point in that particular instance was we do not combat evil with evil. Like I said, he's the guy that's going to die steadfast in righteousness, and he probably did. He's going to die steadfast in righteousness for his cause instead of committing evil to triumph over the greater evil.
Say he was Christian, though. He just said, she just gave an example, and he said no, she can have a baby. He didn't say he was Christian.
This guy was all over the world, all over the news.
But you're making an assumption, though, bro. You're making an assumption.
I'm not making an assumption.
Everybody doesn't know Kirk, bro.
No, everybody who saw that clip of him getting murdered knew he was a political speaker who's Christian. There's not a person who didn't see that clip, who didn't see the news reports, who didn't know what he was.
That's absolutely cap, bro. That's cap. That's not true. That's not true. You can't speak for everybody in the world, dog. I know personally because I talk to people now that had no idea who the fuck Kirk was. Now they see him on his timeline going, and they don't know who the fuck he is. That's false, bro.
He has the very standard cookie cutter Christian view on it.
Regardless, you're making the assumption that people know, dog, and that's a dangerous game. You got to give them. You got to give them more.
That's not an assumption, boss. I'm sorry. Anybody who's following this knows.
Now Abba's losing some points with me here. Abba's losing some points, and I'm gonna tell you why. He's being very dismissive. He has the cookie cutter Christian, and everybody's walk with God is different. Everybody's walk with God is different. No two stories are alike. So to be dismissive and say, he has the cookie cutter, nah, Abba, we don't do that over here. We don't do that over here. Uh-oh. Why does it do that on my... I don't know why it's doing it on that side. But anyway, Yeah, we're not doing that over here. All right, let's get back to it.
He's a Christian political speaker. I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying that. In fact, everyone's been introducing him as such, so we know why he does not like abortion.
All right,
I don't
no,
need to see
you know, and a lot of people do know. Everybody doesn't know, dog. And you got to be fair and give the reason why. You got to give the justification why. If you just say he's doing this, they go, oh, he's a motherfucker because he's gonna force a 10-year-old to have a fucking daughter. But if you go let the shit play and he gives the fucking girl the business of why he made her look stupid. To me, it may not look. It may not.
But that's because you're probably anti-abortion.
No, I don't know. I could care less. I respect his stance. I'm not pro. I'm not anti. I respect his stance. I don't agree with it, of course, but I respect it because he's standing on 10. Like I'm a Christian through and through.
My point still 100% stands. At the end of the day, if you are going to force a 10-year-old to have a baby because you believe abortion is wrong, it's okay for people to say you're a disgusting person. And other people can agree with your stance and say you're cool. My entire
that wasn't
point
my
was
argument. My argument was you took him out of context. People can say what they want to say, but you took him out of context and you're manufacturing a narrative.
I'm not manufacturing a narrative. The narrative was very clear. He's a Christian man. He's against abortion.
You didn't have Christian in that clip, though.
I didn't have to because everyone knows who
Everybody does not know. Look in your...
See, I was being disingenuous. I was being very disingenuous. So that clip, if you didn't have the additional context in it, even though he's standing on the Bible when he's making the majority of his claims, pretty much all of his claims. But if you don't have, you started the whole debate talking about political context. So again, I say context mattered then, but you don't think the additional context matters now when Steven's breaking it up. Disingenuous.
I mean, I'm sure
it's like algebra. If it happened on one side of the equation, it's got to happen on the other.
I'm sure
we'll agree to disagree, but I think that's not taking someone out of context. If someone says
it is absolutely out of context,
if someone says
bro.
I'm a Muslim,
come on, but you smarter than that, dog. You want to
no.
And I gotta say, all the memes that people are making of the context. That's what I'm saying. He's leaving some out. Yeah, he's leaving some out. Conveniently, A-Dub. So that's what I'm saying. All the memes across social media talking about, when you just hear it in context, are the very same people, the very same demographic of individuals that they expect to be heard with the utmost context and the utmost nuance. I find it very ironic. The same demographic of individual that wants to dismiss the context and the context and the nuances when it comes to Charlie Kirk are the same demographic of individual that expects the system to understand their context and when it's their button to fire. It's the same type of person. So when it's you, we're supposed to understand the utmost context, right? We're supposed to understand the utmost context, the nuance to your situation. But when it's somebody else whom you don't like because of something that they said, got you in your fee-fees, now their context doesn't matter.
I think you're reaching. I think you're definitely reaching. But it's
how am I reaching? How am I reaching? If you that's the definition of manufacturing a narrative, bro. He said, I'm gonna force the 10-year-old to have a fucking baby. That's it. It's all everybody gonna see. There's no more context. If you didn't give a motherfucker the opportunity to explain why.
No. He's the most viral person in the world. People know he's a political commentator. They know he's Christian. God. I'm not buying that, but we'll agree.
But you cannot be this disingenuous. Oh, he's the most viral person in the world. He's not Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate was the most viral person in the world. But, you left it out. You had a responsibility. If you're going to make that claim, then make it all the way. You don't leave out the additional context, especially when the first thing that you mention when you come to this debate, to this arena, is the political context. How do you understand that context is necessary over there, but not over here? This is my problem, and it's so annoying. It's what you're doing right now.
Okay. That's not taking someone out of context. If you're not an unknown person, we know where you're standing. We know what you're there for.
Okay.
But we'll agree to disagree.
If you're not an unknown person, we know you're standing. We know what you're. So because he has heightened visibility, everybody is already supposed to know what this guy is on, what type of time this guy is on. That's crazy. That's like me knowing ABBA and only hearing like one video where he says he's Ethiopian. Now I'm extrapolating his whole diet and his, his religion. I'm assuming what his religious practices are because I saw one viral video of him saying that he's Ethiopian. So now I know what his game plan is, and I know how I should treat ABBA Atlas anytime I see him, just off of the strength that he said in one clip that he's Ethiopian. Nobody sees a problem with this.
This is another point you made, and this is one I thought was crazy. You played the other clips of Kirk. You kind of said there's nothing bad about this when he said he wanted Biden to be executed or given the death penalty. Mm-hmm. You don't think that people should hate somebody like that, or some people might hate somebody for that reason? For saying violent things like that?
Yeah, that's their opinion.
Okay, so what's the problem with my stance in this whole thing? You were saying, what did
that
Kirk
video
say
wasn't that video to me? That video wasn't personally for me. That wasn't as important. It didn't get my attention as much as the first two. Right? It's a bunch of motherfuckers that don't like presidents for whatever the reason is. Like, he ain't the first person to say he want to see a president die. Everybody want to see Trump die. Do they deserve to die? Do people want to? Do they deserve to fucking be killed because they hate Trump? Want to see him dead?
But that's my whole point. My point is, people should be allowed after Charlie Kirk's death to say, I didn't like the guy.
But that's not what I said, though. I never argued your reason to feel how you feel. I said I was only focused on the fact that you're manufacturing a narrative.
Well, no. In the clip you said, oh, these are the hateable clips. I don't see it. That's what you said. Mm-hmm. But that's my whole point. You're taking it from your perspective because you don't think those opinions are that crazy, right?
Yeah, they ain't that crazy. But I'm not diminishing their feelings about it. They can hate it. I don't agree, but I'm not saying they're wrong and hating it. I never said that.
Okay, another point that you made. I played a second clip, and this is probably one of the wilder clips. A young man goes up to Charlie Kirk during that debate, and he says to him, hey, what do you think about school lunches for kids? And Charlie laughs at him. He says, there's no starvation in America. We have an obesity problem. Nobody here is going without food. And then you agreed with him. You said there's no starvation in America. Go get food stamps. You can get food at churches. There's no reason to starve. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's no reason to starve in America. It's like 1% of households have like technically a hunger issue, bro. But people are not starving to death in America, bro. Motherfuckers are fat as hell. That's a fact.
Okay. And see, this is the problem I have with like people who are pro-life, and not you specifically, but people like Charlie Kirk. They're so obsessed with keeping fetuses alive. They pretend it's like this big virtue. And then when a child is born, they're like, fuck you, your parents take care of you. It's actually probably one of the most hypocritical, and this is why I think Charlie Kirk is probably a shitty person to me, is that he spent all this time being anti-abortion, but when it comes to every government initiative that's meant to protect kids and keep them good, he was always against it. And to me, it's like...
Okay, so here we go. This is the usual liberal narrative, and this is where Abba's liberal is showing. The liberal narrative, when it comes to the unaliving of unborn children, is to say, well, we should unalive all of these unborn children because, we don't have a system set up in place to take care of them all. When really the thing that Charlie Kirk stood for was a man and a woman under the proper context marrying each other, actually knowing each other, and having a stable foundation before children are introduced into the picture, so that the family unit can be built up off of a stable foundation. Not what we see today in society, where people are having a bunch of oops babies and getting pregnant left, right, and center on accident, having to take a plan B, use contraception that probably breaks, or use birth control that has a certain efficacy rate, and some of the seed still makes it to the egg and babies still occur. Matter of fact, I had a nurse one time tell me that she was using a NuvaRing with her fiance, and they still wound up pregnant. So it is what it is. if you look at the totality of what CK was talking about, what Kirk was talking about, from his worldview, from his perspective, from his faith based perspective, if two people lay the foundation first and then bring children into the picture, then the foundation is laid, and you can actually have a situation in which the children are taken care of. What Abba is doing is going off on the tangent of the worst possible situation for the child, right? In which the unaliving of the unborn fetus wouldn't be necessary if the foundation was laid prior to conception. But and then that's their usual go-to when it comes to the argument. But they like to leave out the part where you should probably marry before you carry, actually know at least the name of the person that you're laying down with. We had a phrase where I come from growing up, and it's probably been elsewhere, but we just used to say down in the bayou was, you lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas, meaning that, what I'm saying, there's no such thing as a free lay. You're going to get something is going to happen from you being irresponsible, and you being irresponsible with your vessel that God gave you. Men and women, you're going to get something. Something is going to come of it. You're playing the lottery with your genitalia. And not that many people win with the lottery.
Like, what's the fucking point of keeping this fetus alive if when it comes out, you're like, yo, fuck you, kid. And that's what he did.
Well, at least, and the other part of that argument that's disingenuous too is that at least the kid got the opportunity to live. Like, the opportunity to live. You're denying a whole human being the opportunity to live. Say what you want about the world. I'm sure we all have sob stories. Listen, I'm a Hurricane Katrina survivor, right? I was down in the flood when it happened. Oh, so long ago. I know they still coming out with documentaries and whatnot. I haven't brought myself to see any of the recent ones because that's a chapter I closed for myself a long time ago. But I'm still appreciative with as much bad I've seen in my personal life. I'm still appreciative that I had the opportunity and the privilege to make it to 36. I'm still appreciative, and I hope to make it to 37 by the end of the year. And God willing, I make it to my 40s. God willing, I make it to my 50s. God willing, I know what 60 feels like. But if my mother would have said, you know what, we're not going to keep if my mother would have turned to my dad and said, you know what, we're not going to keep this one. Boom, I never would have had an opportunity to experience life. And so when we had these conversations over, the unaliving of unborn children, that's what I think about. It's like, damn, you just gonna have people who have experienced life deny somebody else the right to experience life, whether it be a good life or a bad life or what have you, regardless of what struggles come in that life. You're completely denying a whole human being a chance to experience a lifespan. You know what I'm saying? Think about everything that's happened in your life. Y'all don't have one good thing that happened in your life. Y'all don't have any good times in your life. What is so bad about life, right, in general? What is so horrible about life that you could look at another human being coming up and be like, another potential human being and be like, yeah, we're just going to cut you off. You don't need to experience any of this whatsoever. I just never understood that. I never understood that.
He
said, fuck you, kid?
No, he didn't, but he might as well have when he's constantly championing everything that's anti-public
Might as well have. Okay, I'm getting exhausted with this conversation. We about an hour and a half in. I'm gonna pick it up again some other time. I have to do this again. This isn't keeping me awake like I thought it would, so I'm not really having a great time right now staying awake. But yeah, I'm gonna have to bring the. I'm gonna try. I got a doctor's appointment in the morning, as I said at the top of the show, so I'm going to have to cut this short and get some sleep so that the triage and all my numbers come out great tomorrow. And well, looking at it today, it's gonna be a few hours. So yeah, next live, I'm probably going to do. I'm probably gonna unwind with some gaming when I get home, and then I'm going to on my gaming channel, Omni, etc. You see it over there, and then I'll wrap this up before I go to work because this needs to be dissected. I don't think people are actually analyzing this the way that it needs to be analyzed. Abba is not making the points I think he thinks he's making. And I can see Steven's confusion. I understand Steven's confusion. Because 1 second ago, like I said, 1 second ago, you at the top of the program, you wanted the utmost context. You wanted the context to come in the conversation, and now it's like you're very dismissive of additional context. I don't understand it. And so my face is scrunched up like Steven's face is. But peace, love, health, wealth to you all. Worry observations, righteous discussions unite people. It's been the Word Up Podcast, and I've been your host, OMNI, Omni, etc. Peace out, A-Dub. Peace out, everybody else. Come in, subscribe for more. I'm going to break down this more and get a little bit more in depth. We're about halfway through anyway, so it's not that much longer. Anyway, peace. Y'all take care.